A very tough question was asked multiple times on the forums, and unfortunately, science itself seems to be very divided. And, well, it doesn't seem to care too much about life in general. And the question was, when is it okay to abort a child? Up to what child? Up to what age? And is it actually moral to do so? Well, if we look throughout history, there have been societies, like for example in Japan, where a family would organize they would do certain things in that, and if they didn't want a child, they would commit to unaliving that child. It was a practice called mabiki. And Japan wasn't the only country where that existed. They called it a population regulation. See, when people in their sickness do not value life, they will invent all sorts of means to justify the killing of life. Just like you see in numerous wars, those who are usually the oppressors, they will always victimize and use any retaliation of the bullied party as a means to victimize and to commit further damage to them. You can see that specifically in America's way of dealing with things, as they bombed numerous countries into oblivion. It was always something like, collateral damage or fighting communism, fighting terrorism, all sorts of juicy terms that fit, the minds of simple-minded humans. Now, if we are to think a bit about the spirituality of childbirth, see, when a child is conceived, it takes several weeks till usually 4 or 5, if I remember correctly, till the so called conscience, a certain piece of life, inhabits that physical body. If that child has a much greater vibration and ends up being somewhat of a saint, true genius, or things like that, it will take longer for life to settle in that physical body. It may take longer for a life form to join that body because you find much rarer such higher life forms that may inhabit that body compared to giving birth to a child of supremely low supremely low energy quality, which will end up inhabited by some dumb form of life that will have that child manifest as some primitive minded zombie or something like that. Because a woman's the woman's body, the quality of her body determines how your child will be. It matters a lot because she will house that child's body for 9 months. She will harbor that body for 9 months. And that body will literally count on the quality of the genes of the parents and also some karmic structures beyond the DNA. But let's not dive into that because science is not ready for that. Apparently, science nowadays wants to dictate things based on what is serving it and those imposing the science, not just the regular science the usual science that used to be up till, I don't know, 10 years ago when everything actually started being shaped and reshaped to simply fit the billionaires and, well, some of the elites. When we think about life, see, life is everything around you. The objects that you use are also life. They may seem lifeless to you because they don't move around, but they also have a certain awareness. If you touch a certain object, a part of your energy will remain on that object, and maybe even 200 years in the future. If someone sufficiently wise, sufficiently knowledgeable of energy, and sensitive enough even gets close to that body, they might get a bit of knowledge about you, what you were when you lived, some of your traumas, whatever kind of energy you left out of you when you simply touched that body. If you're sensitive enough about life, you can take a seat on a chair, on a sofa, and you can actually feel what kind of influence that one has. See, the reason why you are depressed in big cities is because you get in touch with way too many objects that have been touched numerous times by other people who are miserable. Whether you go into a tram, into a bus, you're just crammed like sardines. It doesn't matter how many people there are in there at the moment you're traveling or how few people there are. Anything you touch in that bus is already crawling with unwanted energies that are not suitable to your body. That is why it is wise to always take a very lengthy shower when you get back home, not to just cleanse the filth, right? But also to allow water to wash away some of the energies you have picked up from other people. When it comes to understanding life like this, you will simply comprehend, or hopefully you should start comprehending, that life is just far more complex than the rat race you live in. Everything around you is life. And, well, me being a pantheist, I cannot live otherwise than observing that. Not everything that moves is life. Even the physical bodies that you have around you, the objects that you use each and every day, they also move as well. When you take a look at them at levels of atoms and the such, that's not a Brownian movement for nothing. It is a vibrancy of life. They have a certain life within them, a certain energy beyond them that gives them all those properties that they move Brownianly, that they move so chaotically. Let's not forget that everything which is physical, atoms, molecules, and the such, especially atoms, they bounce into in existence, and sooner or later they come back. Yes, everything leaves this physicality and comes back into it. Yes, at a molecular level. That is why it is wise to always understand that when you go to bed and you wake up in the morning, you never wake up the same being. You may have similar thoughts and the such, but you definitely don't have the same cells, you don't have the same atoms and molecules within you. People have to comprehend things like this, because when you start understanding that life goes way broader than just everything you see and hear and touch, well, then you might actually start opening yourself to further possibilities in life, and life might actually start being perceived as less than the mundane that you are forced to live in, because a sick society wants you to live a repetitive, boring life so that you're never happy, you're never pleased, and when your life feels so devoid, you're easily becoming a mold, something that others can shape to their own desires and make use of you the way they need or even crave. So, when it comes to life, to children, and to birth, a child's body will be inhabited by a certain form of energy, depending on its quality, depending on karma. Typically, life never fails. Based on the karma of that physical body, a corresponding life form will inhabit that body. You can use occult practices to put certain demons or unwanted energies into such bodies and to cause harm both to that body so that you cripple it enough so that you make another fucked up human being, another psychopath, another natural sociopath, psychopath, whatever else. Yes, there are such practices. You can do things like this if you want to abuse energies in such ways. Normally, the physical body will be inhabited in around 3 to 5 weeks, if I remember correctly. It can be 2 months or more if it is a very advanced body in terms of spiritual energy. Beyond that, we're already talking about a conscious life form. So that means beyond that, you're committing a crime if you're removing the physical body. If you're choosing to give up the child, you're already committing murder because that is already a conscious life form. Most people, in their stupidity, think that if the child cannot speak, if the child cannot express, it does not feel anything. The child records everything already from their mother's belly. If you have a mother with huge emotional issues, you're gonna have those issues as well in life because you will record everything in your mother's belly. And there's a reason why you don't remember all of those things, because nature has certain layers of protection. You're not gonna remember how much your mother was abused, maybe, or how many problems your mother had while she was carrying you in her belly. But you will experience those throughout your life. Yes, you will feel pains, you will have recurring events in your mind that you're not gonna probably remember. Yes, you might even find out if you are sensitive enough that your mother had certain problems. Maybe she is no longer alive. There are some cases of people whose mothers died after birth, but they ended up having certain events in their life internally that portrayed to those, especially who are sensitive enough, what their mother was going on, what was going through, what she was suffering from. and they end up is somewhat even more depression because they never got to meet their mother in person. Although, well, being carried by their mother, they lived almost symbiotic. They lived symbiotically with their mother, right? That was the most intimate way you lived with your mother. Obviously, not in a sexual way, because then you were like literally fully connected with her. Yes, anything she would feel, anything she would eat, you'd also be affected by that. If she would smoke, it would affect you. If she would drink, it would affect you as well. If she would take care of herself, that would also influence you as well. If she took great care of her body, obviously, it would influence you as well. If she would treat herself like shit, you're not gonna have a pleasant life. Or you would take huge efforts to transcend that. There are a lot of people who manage to transcend the pains of their parents. Yes, especially their mother, because don't forget, you're gonna be in a very intimate level with your mother because first and foremost you lived within her body for 9 months. That is way more intimate than sex in a way, and I'm not talking from a sexual perspective, because you're fully connected with your mother for 9 months. Afterwards, you're going to spend a lot of time in her arms. You're going to be breastfed by her. Yes, that is yet another layer of intimacy because what she's thinking of, how she treats you, how she treats herself, how many issues and problems she has, those are going to influence you a lot in your first years of life. Yes? So a life form becomes conscious in terms of humans at around the first 2 months at most, let's say. That is when life inhabits that physical body, and then you can actually speak of a conscious being. Yes, children may be somewhat unconscious, but it doesn't mean that they are not conscious as well. They don't have the means to express themselves. But if you choose to unalive that body, I assure you both the mother's body and the child's body will leave immense amounts of karma on that piece of life that chose to inhabit that physical body. That is already like murder. It is a bit worse than murder, honestly, but well, science nowadays, and especially a lot of these NGOs, are telling you that, it's not murder, you can do it anytime, it is your body, your choice, all sorts of ignorant things like that. Because in the end, those who promote these kinds of programming are those who, in the end, profit from mothers giving up their children because the aborted fetuses are going to be made use by hospitals. There is a huge underground mafia for this. All of the, or many of the unused fetuses end up being harvested of all the resources that they have and the amino acids and all sorts of other substances that can be drawn from those dead bodies will be put especially in beauty products. So next time you use those stupid beauty products, remember that they are designed and promoted by a sick society. We live in a death cult society where you're wanted dead regardless of what you want, whoever you want, whether you are a minority that's so-called promoted by a sick society. When a narcissist promotes you, it means that you're just their target, not that they care about you. They never cared about you. And the proof is we live in a sick society. We live in a death cult where you have to be exterminated one way or another through diseases, through being made to feel like shit, through radiations, through all sorts of things. There's thousands of poisons being thrown at you each and every day. And you're not even thankful to your body for all the effort it does to make sure that you live beyond those little poisons. You cannot acknowledge the strengths your physical body does to allow you to simply experience this life. You just focus yourself on how shitty things can be. You're not opening yourself to life long enough and powerful enough to feel the strength of life and what it is to shape itself and slither itself through all of these horrible events that are going into the world. Because you're not depressed just because you're always in touch with objects that other miserable people touched. You're also depressed because the whole world is suffering. We're killing 52 billion animals per year so that you have the meat you eat from your plate. We're killing forests and life forms left and right through our ignorance. And you think you're gonna live your life in peace? Well, why do they say? Why does a sick society say that ignorance is bliss? Because I've never seen a blissful ignorant. But those who rule over those ignorance will be blissful. Because when people are ignorant, they will accept everything and they will be easily guided. That is why they call it a bliss. It is never your bliss, because ignorance cannot be happy. They will never allow themselves happiness. Everything that they will experience as a trauma, as something bad, as a new means to victimize. So nothing will change in their life. Nothing will become better. So life has to be comprehended in way broader ways, in way broader layers, because life is far more complex than just a stupid, silly little dictionary definition. So hopefully this video raises enough awareness and allows people to comprehend the fact that when you look at life, it is not just something you can give up on. People cry for a silly little animal that they die. If a kitten dies, they will cry for it and say, oh my gosh, a conscious piece of life died. And if a child is aborted, they say, ah, it doesn't matter. Because you've been promoted to think like this for thousands of years. You have the programming of those previous generations within you that everything about you is bad, so why would you even care about another human? Once you transcend those things, you start to be finally free from certain layers of ignorance. There's still a long way from there, but you're starting to get back in touch with your empathy. Once you get in touch with your empathy, you can start feeling life. And then you can start going beyond this science of the corporations that are only profiting out of you believing certain things. It's a whole society whose single pillar of resistance is your believing in its nonsenses. You can see how your history is being shaped right before your eyes. You can see how your culture is being demolished right before your eyes. You can see bozos inventing hundreds, if not thousands, of genders as if as if they're gods inventing and reinventing the world. You can see madness unfold in all its sickness. And then you're thinking that the science of this world is actually designed to support you. Well, keep sleeping if you're still stuck in that level. All this being said, hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care. Enjoy life. This being said, Ferencan Board signing out.